Mark entered the world of journalism with wide eyes and a thirst for truth. He believed in the power of words. He believed in the importance of bearing witness. The chaos of the world felt different when filtered through the lens of journalism. It felt important. It felt like a story that had to be told. Mark landed his first major assignment covering the war in Ukraine. He was young, eager, and ready to prove himself. He knew the risks, but the gravity of the situation only fueled his determination. The world needed to know what was happening in Ukraine. He was determined to be the one to tell them. His journey began in Moscow, a city steeped in history and shrouded in a tense silence. The weight of the conflict was palpable, a constant hum beneath the surface of everyday life. He could feel the city holding its breath. From Moscow, he would journey onward to Ukraine. He knew that the real story was there, amidst the rubble and the resilience of the Ukrainian people. He was ready to face the challenges ahead, to stand in the face of adversity and report the truth. The train rattled westward, carrying Mark towards the heart of the conflict. The scenery outside his window morphed from the stoic grandeur of Moscow to a landscape scarred by war. The closer he got to the front, the more the world around him seemed to fray at the edges. He arrived in Kiev, a city that wore its scars openly, a testament to the brutality of the conflict. Buildings lay in ruins, their skeletal remains casting long shadows over streets once bustling with life. The air was thick with the smell of smoke and the unsettling quiet that followed disaster. Despite the destruction, there was a spirit of defiance in the air. He saw it in the eyes of the Ukrainian people, in their resolute determination to rebuild their lives and their nation. There was a quiet strength in their resilience, a spirit that refused to be broken. He began his work, interviewing soldiers and civilians, documenting their stories of loss, courage, and hope. Each story was a piece of the larger narrative, a testament to the human cost of the conflict. Each story he heard fueled his commitment to reporting the truth, no matter the cost. Days blurred into nights. Mark navigated the chaotic landscape, bearing witness to the brutal realities of war. He documented the relentless shelling, the desperate search for safety in bomb shelters, and the heart-wrenching stories of families torn apart. He traveled to the front lines where the fighting raged with an intensity that defied comprehension. The air was thick with the smell of gunpowder and fear, the constant barrage of artillery fire a deafening symphony of destruction. He saw the toll the fighting took on the soldiers, their faces etched with exhaustion and the grim determination of men fighting for their homeland. Away from the front lines, he bore witness to the humanitarian crisis unfolding. Hospitals overflowed with the wounded, their corridors filled with the anguished cries of pain and the quiet sobs of grief. The faces of doctors and nurses were etched with exhaustion, their eyes reflecting the horrors they faced daily. Each day brought new horrors, new stories of loss and suffering, and each day, Mark wrote, his words a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable adversity. He knew that his words held power, that they could cut through the fog of war and show the world the true cost of conflict. As Mark delved deeper into the conflict, he encountered a new enemy: disinformation. The information war was as fierce as the battles raging across the Ukrainian landscape, each side vying for control of the narrative. Truth became a casualty, lost in a sea of propaganda and conflicting reports. He found himself accused of spreading fake news by Russian state media, his reports dismissed as Western propaganda. His integrity as a journalist, his commitment to truth, was under attack. The accusations stung, a stark reminder of the dangerous game he was playing. Mark knew he couldn't fight fire with fire. His only weapon was the truth, and he clung to it fiercely. He meticulously fact-checked every detail, cross-referencing information with multiple sources, ensuring that his reporting was accurate and unbiased. He refused to be drawn into the propaganda war. His loyalty was to the truth, and to the people whose stories he was telling. He refused to be silenced. He knew that the world needed to hear the truth no matter how uncomfortable it might be. His determination solidified, fueled by a sense of purpose that transcended fear or intimidation. He would not be deterred, he would not be silenced. The Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant loomed large over the conflict, a stark symbol of the high stakes involved. Captured by Russian forces early in the war, the plant became a pawn in a dangerous game of geopolitical chess. The world watched with bated breath, fearing a nuclear disaster. Mark traveled to the regions surrounding the plant, documenting the anxieties of residents living under the constant threat of a nuclear incident. He spoke with families who had fled their homes, leaving behind everything they owned, their faces etched with fear and uncertainty. He interviewed Ukrainian officials who accused Russia of using the plant as a shield, stationing troops and military equipment within its perimeter. He reported on the shelling near the plant, the blame traded back and forth, the world holding its breath. The situation at Zaporizhia was a stark reminder of the fragility of peace, the ever-present threat of escalation that hung over the conflict like a dark cloud. Mark's reports served as a stark reminder to the world of the potential consequences of inaction, the human cost of political maneuvering. He used his platform to amplify the voices of those living in the shadow of Zaporizhia, giving them a voice on the global stage. Section 6. A glimmer of hope, a cloud of doubt. Amidst the darkness, there were glimmers of hope. Ceasefire talks, brokered by international mediators, offered a glimmer of hope for a peaceful resolution to the conflict. The world watched with cautious optimism as negotiators met, hoping that diplomacy might yet prevail over violence. Mark was in Riyadh, covering the talks between Russian and American officials. The atmosphere was tense. A delicate dance of diplomacy played out against a backdrop of mistrust and suspicion. He could sense the weight of expectation, the hope that this time, peace might actually be within reach. However, even as talks progressed, the fighting continued. Reports emerged of ceasefire violations, with each side accusing the other of acting in bad faith. The fragile hope for peace was constantly threatened by the reality on the ground, the deep-seated mistrust that fueled the conflict. Mark found himself caught between hope and skepticism. He reported on the peace talks with cautious optimism, while also documenting the ongoing fighting, the human cost of the conflict, a constant reminder of the stakes involved. Section 7. Truth prevails. Despite the challenges, Mark refused to be silenced. He continued to report from the front lines, his words a beacon of truth in a sea of disinformation. His integrity as a journalist, his unwavering commitment to accuracy, earned him the respect of his peers and the trust of his readers. His reports, grounded in first-hand accounts and meticulous fact-checking, began to chip away at the wall of propaganda. International news organizations, impressed by his courage and integrity, began to pick up his stories, amplifying his voice, and exposing the truth to a wider audience. His work did not go unnoticed. He received threats, his name smeared by propaganda outlets, but he refused to be intimidated. He knew that he was on the right side of history, that his work was making a difference. The recognition came in the form of a prestigious journalism award, a testament to his courage and his commitment to truth. It was a validation of his work, a sign that even amidst the chaos of war, truth could still prevail. Section 8. The price of truth. Mark's journey was not without its costs. He had witnessed horrors that would forever be etched into his memory, carried the weight of the stories he told on his shoulders. The war had changed him, hardened him, left him with a profound understanding of the fragility of peace and the enduring strength of the human spirit. He had made enemies, powerful people who would stop at nothing to silence him. But he had also found friends, colleagues who shared his passion for truth, and ordinary people whose resilience in the face of adversity inspired him. He knew that his work was far from over. The war in Ukraine was just one conflict in a world riven by violence and instability. He was just one voice, but he had found his purpose, and he would continue to use his words to fight for truth, to give a voice to the voiceless, and to remind the world of the human cost of conflict. Section 9. A continuing mission. As the situation in Ukraine remained volatile, Mark knew his job was far from over. He remained committed to shedding light on the ongoing humanitarian crisis, the political machinations, and the resilience of the Ukrainian people. He knew the world was watching, and he wouldn't let them turn away. He continued to travel between Russia and Ukraine, meticulously documenting the unfolding events and their global impact. He reported on the waves of refugees seeking safety, the shattered lives, and the uncertain future. Mark understood that his work was not just about reporting the news, it was about holding power to account, exposing injustice, and advocating for a more peaceful world. His experiences had forged in him an unyielding belief in the importance of truth, especially in a world increasingly shrouded in shadows and misinformation. He carried the stories of those he met, the soldiers, the civilians, the victims, and the survivors, with him. Their strength fueled his resolve, a constant reminder of the human cost of conflict and the importance of his mission. He would continue to fight for truth, knowing that each story he told, each fact he uncovered, was a step towards a better, more informed world.